Yep. Give me a nod when you're ready.
Like fourth.
Shooter's ready. Stand by.
Hey everyone, this is Matt Gunlock from the 3GIQ podcast. I'm here with my co-host Frank Gow, and we're going to do a breakdown of his most recent match, which was the tactical games in Florence, Texas. So, Frank, before we get started with anything, can you tell us about the event? Just kind of give us a heads up about the event, what you saw.
Yeah, sure thing. So this is the third regional event for the tactical games for this athletic year, calendar year, whatever you want to call it. So their first regional was in Mississippi. It was Meridian. They did New Mexico like 2 weeks ago, and now we're in Texas. It's a little different because this is the closest to their home base. Jake lives like 12 miles away from the range that we were at, the Texas Shooting Academy. And I would say that whereas from what I saw, New Mexico was very heavy in natural terrain, this was just a lot of bays. So the style of shooting was markedly different. It also made it a perfect opportunity for them to introduce TAC-2 gun, which is their new initiative. When we interviewed Nick Thayer, he said this is the year that they're going to start pushing shooting. And you and I, we saw some of the shooting events that they were more difficult or dynamic in the last few regionals, and we had a conversation about it. We're a little skeptical, honestly, but 2 action stages this time around, with some long range steel, and I'm really excited to continue to see those types of events in the future.
Nice. So we've mentioned it in the past. You tore your Achilles tendon last year, and this since recovering, you've been taking a lot of painstaking measures to properly heal, not rush it, and just, take your time to get to 100%. What kind of preparations did you take in order to accomplish that?
So in coming back from the injury, obviously the priority was preserving my ability to continue my Marine Corps career, right? That's what pays the bills, and that's the most important thing. None of this would be possible otherwise. So just rehabbing it the right way, and then getting back to USPSA was obviously a little easier than getting back to tactical games. I was able to start shooting USPSA again in about 2 to 3 months. I was limping, but I could still shoot it. But I couldn't. There's no way I could get back into tactical games. I know you kept asking me like, "Hey, what do you think of this one? What do you think of this one?" I kept saying like, "It's too early, man. It's just too early." And I get it. They're a lot of fun, but also I wanted to make sure. I wanted to make absolutely sure. So some of the wickets that I wanted to hit, ankle stability, right? So when I moved out to Virginia in June timeframe, there's a set of hills by my house, and we adopted a dog. And the first few times I walked out there, getting up those things was a struggle, even walking. I progressed from that to jogging with the dog up the hills. I increased the length. I went up the gnarlier hills, and I was able to get to the point where I was, sprinting up them. My dog does this fun thing where sometimes she'll run in front of me and she'll look back with a sly look and be like, "Oh, that's all you got, huh?" And she'll decide to run a little faster when we're going up hills. So just chasing her up there. And then I added flak runs. Like tactical games, you have to wear a 15 pounds plate carrier. Has to have plates in it, has to be slick. So I started adding that. And then I would say the three weeks before the competition, I did that loop, that entire running route. I didn't run it, but I hiked it with my plate carrier and a 75-pound sandbag, switching between shoulder carries and then back of the neck carry. And I did that while walking with my wife, and we just kind of chatted the whole way. Some of the other wickets I wanted to hit, I focused really heavily on squatting. The biggest hit I took, aside from ankle mobility, was losing calf muscles in my left side. That was a really mental thing for me. You know, as I was going through my rehab, I'm just watching my left calf get smaller and smaller because you don't have your Achilles tendon working. You can't engage calf muscles at all. And for someone who mostly works legs, that was really that was really demoralizing. So I was hitting squats really regularly, and I was able to squat 300 the week before I hit the event. And the other things, like it was a variety of circuit workouts, long distance runs, and then my school days. I would make sure I would bike to campus. I'd go to the gym. I'd do a circuit. I hit the assault bike. I'd run around the track. I'd do burpees, all that stuff, whatever, battle ropes, all the stuff that my school gym has. And then I'd bike back at the end of the night. And those are easily like almost 2,000 calorie days. So those are all the things I wanted to be comfortable with before I actually got back into the games.
So based on everything you saw at this previous event that you just attended, if somebody was looking to get into the tactical games, what recommendations would you recommend to them in order to prepare prior to an event? And how far out would you tell them to start preparing?
I'd say the least amount of time that I'd prepare. It really depends. If you're like a stud at PT, I mean, I would just get into it. That's the hardest thing to get up to speed on, is the physical part of it. They have some benchmarks on their website, like for each division. They basically say, yeah, you should be able to run this fast of a mile time with a plate carrier. You should be able to shoot these standards. The best way to prepare, and what I did was I got the the stage descriptions from Meridian, and based on that, I was looking at the weights that the intermediate division was messing with, and that's what I was basing my work off of. So being able to stress carry 100-pound sandbag is important. 100-pound farmer's carriers of both handles, that kind of stuff, knowing that there's going to be a long distance run. But the specific things, looking back, that I probably should have paid a little more attention to are grip strength and AMRAP workouts, like as many reps as possible. There were two instances in which in Florence, there was a time limit, one of 90 seconds, and the other one, we'll get into it, but it was basically like if you completed the first part fast enough, you got extra time in the bank to slay yourself and try to earn more points on the second part of the workout. And I literally hit a wall because that workout involved a wall. And that there were some guys who absolutely killed it during that stage, and I lost the most points during it because all my focus was long distance running, circuit workouts, but I never actually did an AMRAP.
So, you've mentioned AMRAPs. You've talked about AMRAPs. What about them? What about them would have best prepared you, like throughout the whole stage?
So usually there's a par time, right?
Yep.
But usually that's to make sure that that particular squad doesn't go for too long.
Mm-hmm.
They have started introducing some fixed time events in which they are testing your ability to do as much work as possible during the allotted time, whether that's 9 or 12 minutes. So I just didn't do that kind of workout. So AMRAP stands for as many reps as possible. And the one that I am thinking about is on day 2, they had us do a shooting sequence and basically run like 3 laps, a little under a mile, which really wasn't that bad. But as soon as you were done, you went into another sequence in which you were carrying one of those jerry can sandbags to a wall. You had to drop the bag, do a burpee, hand release burpee, get the bag over the wall, climb over the wall. And each one of those reps of doing the burpee, the throw, and climbing over the wall, that's 1 point. And you are doing like they give you, I think it was 6 minutes. If you finish the first part, the shooting and the running, then whatever time you have left in that portion got added on. So I was doing that for 9 straight minutes. And I would say that I I definitely lost my efficiency. And I was like, keep it moving, keep it moving. But it was just a battle of attrition at that point.
So would you say less focus on heavyweights, more focus on building that engine, cardio, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I would have diverted some of the time. Lifting heavy is still, I think, important. You made a good point to me. I told you I was focusing on squats, and you were like, I do a lot more deadlifts. And a lot of the implements that everything that you're lifting comes off the fucking ground, right?
Mhm.
So, newsflash, Frank, maybe that would have been good to also do. I did do deadlifts near the end, but I probably should have been doing that along with the squats. But yes, like knowing that you only have like 6 minutes or a minute and a half, and you basically have to go balls to the wall because there are dudes out there who are just absolutely killing it. In that wall sequence, I bagged 50 points, which I thought was decent, but some guys are doing like 67 to 70.
Damn.
And knowing that that's what's out there, like I said, I lost a lot of points in that stage.
So what you're saying is I should probably get a yoke at some point and
Um,
start jumping over a yoke.
it's the thing
Because
is
I
like,
noticed that I from all the videos I noticed walls and I noticed yokes.
yeah, the wall, I think the yoke would be a good investment. It's all about knowing your body mechanics and what is the most efficient way and repeatable way, consistent way for you to get over the bar. Because you got some gangly fuckers who are all limbs, just like wacky arm waving inflatable tube man, just like flapping themselves over the bar. And then you have guys like me who are like the bar is
Short.
basically up to my mouth, and I have to be pretty consistent with the way I approach it.
Yep. No, it's the same with me. You know, whether it's a wall, whether it's a yoke, I have to go the same way every single time, or I'm gonna just expend more energy than what should be expended,
Well,
and I'm gonna
hopefully in
gas out.
Yeah, hopefully in South Carolina they'll just let John yeet you over the bar.
He is taller than me.
He is.
I have to ask, was there a long run at this event?
There wasn't. In a lot of ways, this was an atypical tactical games, and I called it out when I said, a lot of the ranges tend to have a lot of natural terrain. Like
Mhm.
Panthera was like that. Meridian definitely like that. New Mexico is definitely like that. The Texas Shooting Academy is literally a parking lot and just bays everywhere, right?
Yep.
Um,
And that's where they had
so,
their nationals. And I remember talking to people, they had to go off of the academy to one
yeah,
of the parks in order to do the run.
yeah. Which so that's it's always assumed to be a staple of the games that on day one there will be a long movement of 3 to 4 miles.
Mm-hmm.
This time around, it was maybe a mile, and it was
Did,
divided into like 3 laps.
did you feel like you got gassed the same amount as if there was a long run?
No.
No.
Um, and you see that long run is like it kind of separates the pack. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah.
You got a lot of it basically it punishes the guys who are like really good at doing circuit style workouts, lifting heavy things, but they can't sustain a long distance run. They can't just the cardio is not really there. And honestly, like that's where Jared and I during the team games back in 21, that's where we made up quite we passed like 8 groups while we were out there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's hard to say. Like I can play the what if game, but it probably would have played more to my strengths. It would have played more to the strengths of what the training that I did in preparation if there was a long distance run.
Kind of going into the shooting portion now. You know, I remember telling you before going out there, hey, you're not really going to need to bother with a sling because everything's going to be staged. So, prior to doing that, and we practice it in 2-gun, 3-gun, manipulating the sling, that kind of stuff. In here, this didn't apply this time, did it?
It did apply in one stage.
Okay.
So the very first stage I shot on Saturday was a tattoo gun stage. It started with a pistol stage that was basically USPSA, which is fucking awesome that that's now in the tactical games. I can't overstate how excited I am that action stages are now in the games, because that was the major criticism that a lot of guys who are good at shooting, they look at tactical games and like, the shooting's not interesting enough. Well, now the shooting's interesting. So now what are you going to do? But anyway, I digress. Shoot the USPSA stage. Grab a with the rifle slung on your back like the entire time, right?
Mhm.
Grab a weight sled, go all the way to the next bay, and then you're doing basically like a gas gun stage. We shot 4 steel out to like 200 yards out of the back of a minivan, and then you had to go near the front and then shoot 5 steel targets. And then you had to pull the sled all the way back. So I did spend a lot of time on sling manipulation, but that helped, like, you know, popping the sling loose as we're getting up to the van, loading and making ready as I was in the van, and then cinching that down so it didn't get in my way when I was pulling the sled. But all the other stages, they had a rifle box.
Is there anything else in terms of shooting that you want to talk about?
Yeah, if I could talk more about just the style of shooting. Yes, it doesn't look particularly challenging, but I assure you that it is, because if it were super easy, then all those tactical athletes would be nailing every single shot, but they're not. And that's because of the conditions, right? It's because of what you're doing leading up to it. And I didn't really, if I could go back and tweak something in my preparations, I would have done more dedicated workout days with like simulated battles, because what I was finding was that there were certain moments in which, like, I was in the zone, even though I was holding my breath, having just like done a farmer's carry, or just despite the exhaustion, I was still in the zone, and I had like one rifle target on the tank trap stage where I only dropped 1 shot out of 30. Like, I was that dialed in, but it really took me several stages to get to that level. Same with the pistol. Guys would come up and say like, dude, why was your third string so fucking fast? Like, your first few were like, oh, we're watching you. You weren't shooting that fast. You're also missing shots. But by the third one, you're just like pop, 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 pop. And it's just a different level of marksmanship. It's something that doesn't get tested in USPSA. It might get tested in some 3-gun stages like the Duskin, where they actually put you under physical duress. It definitely doesn't get tested during Bullseye, but that ability to be precise despite all the adverse effects that are going on with your body is something that is entirely unique to the tactical games.
And that's something I enjoy, you know, because you have to know exactly how hard you can push yourself and how gassed you're going to make yourself to complement how accurate am I going to be whenever I get to the shooting portion. Because once you're done with the shooting portion, then you're going to have to go back and do more physical exercise. Then you're going to go back to the shooting portion. So it's knowing how fast and how hard to push yourself to leave enough in the tank to actually make your hits.
Yeah, that's part of it. Like, absolutely. Some of the new guys were like asking me, and like, I'm like, dude, don't go too ham on the physical stuff, because by the time it gets time to shoot, then you're going to drop a bunch of points. But it's also like knowing what the limit is. And what I found was that even at my most tired and my most like physically exerted, after my forearms were shot and I was just like, my breath was just racking, there was still like the ability to just hold my breath and get 3 solid shots, take a breath, and just like that's all executable, even when you're at your most tired, even when you've done all this other stuff. And I think that's really important to explore, because like you just don't get that within a 30 to 60 second action stage.
Well, the other aspect to add on to that is because you're doing what, 4 battles, you're doing 3 stages and a floater stage each day, 2 days, 8 stages total. You need to know how hard you can push yourself on one stage in order to keep that same momentum for the next stage. and then the
Yeah.
stage after that.
Yeah, it's much more of a marathon, and I would say that because I've never shot a 3-gun major, but a USPSA major is a marathon.
Mhm.
10 stages in a day or 20 stages over 3 days is still physically stressful, but in a different way, right? People look at it, it's like you only shot a cumulative like 120 seconds. How is that? But it is still fatiguing. It just is in a very different, I would say, more cerebral way. The tactical games forces you, like you said, to pace yourself, knowing that there are more stages coming up, but also there's a day 2. And the decisions you make when you go home after day 1, whether you go straight to bed, whether you binge alcohol, whether you eat trash, whether you forget to stretch, that's going to impact day 2 as well.
So, you kind of took it easy this one, decided to go intermediate, just see where you're at. Based off of that, are you going to progress over to tactical next?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't I'm trying to I want to talk about this, but I don't want it to come across like I'm taking anything away from the guys who placed above me. But by its nature, intermediate is the bunny slope of the tactical games, if there is really such a thing. Like, it's a pretty grueling bunny slope, but it is still the entry level division for the games. The guy in first place won pretty handily. And if you win intermediate pretty handily, you really shouldn't be there. The guy that was in fourth and ended up beating me for third at the end of day 2, he got first in Mississippi, but we were talking afterwards. As soon as I found out that I'd lost to him, I went up congratulating him. I was like, "Hey man, you were the better man this weekend." He basically told me like he won by such a wide margin at Mississippi that he didn't even feel like it was a valid win. And I was like, okay, I understand that, right? But I was also like, motherfucker, if I see you in intermediate again, I'm gonna follow you with a fucking megaphone, and I'm gonna throw like mini sandbags in your wake as you're running the games. But all jokes aside, yes, it's bittersweet, right? Like I would have really loved to be on the podium. My first tackle games in 2019, I was in like the 20s. When I ran Florida, I was in the 10s. When I ran the team games with Jared, we came in fourth. And then the injury happens, and then I did all this work to come back and make myself competitive, and I missed it by like 4 points. So,
Which was
yeah,
one miss, essentially.
it was one miss. And you bet your ass, like I was in there looking at all my targets, but it just wasn't there, right? It just, oh man, I went through like all fucking 4 stages of grief, and while I was in that scoring room. But yes, it's as much as being on the podium would mean a lot to me, and having the medal to be have on my wall would mean a lot to me. I can't, in good faith as a competitor, bring myself like I can't just go back into intermediate and say like I still got a bum ankle. Like, no, I came in fourth place.
You proved to yourself that you are capable and that you're
Yeah.
ready for that next step.
Yeah, out of the field, and this was a pretty like intermediate is all over the place, man. Because like I said, his name's Daniel Vela. He's a great guy, like really good shooter. Him and I were pushing each other all weekend. Um, he won Mississippi by like 20%.
Holy shit.
So I understand, man. Like that's like going to a USPSA local and you beat all the fuds who are like, coming off oxygen to shoot their stages by 20%. Doesn't mean anything. So I get why he wanted to like go to a potentially more competitive regional and prove himself. And he did. This was a pretty stacked intermediate class in Texas. There were 53 competitors, and like all of us within the top 10, I would say we're within, maybe not top 10, but we're within like the top 10%, like points wise. But yeah, man, there's no excuse. Like when I compete again, I'm going to be in tactical.
So, given that me and Bod were about we're just under 4 weeks out from our team event down in South Carolina. What recommendations would you give us in order to prepare for that event? I know we neither one of us have been to Sawmill, but based on some of the stuff that you saw there in Florence, what kind of recommendations would you say to tailor our training to?
You guys have been working out really consistently. I wouldn't worry about like, and you've done the games before, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
You know what they're going to throw at you. Your communication as a team is probably what needs to like having both of you jump over a yoke, just like how you guys are managing that, how you're managing your gear so that it doesn't get in each other's way.
Mm-hmm.
I would straight up just set up like a really miserable AMRAP. Sorry, John, if you're listening to this. If you're listening to this, Matt's already come up with something, and you've probably already done it, and now you know why you're doing it. But yeah, I would set up like a really miserable AMRAP, and I would, come up with that stage design based on what you've seen already from this year, and I would talk to each other about how you're going to move around each other and how you're not going to get in each other's way and who's going to do what. Because that's what made me and Jared, and I imagine that's what made you and Andy successful in your team games.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, our communication and our ability just to feed off of each other was it was where it needed to be. And I think John and I are going to have the same. He's been down. He was down in Camp Lejeune for the past couple weeks for East.
Yeah.
They're prepping for championships, but we already talked like, now that I have that new job there on Quantico, we already talked like, hey, let's get together every single day, whether it's morning or afternoon, evening, and let's go work out. Like there's nobody. I don't know anybody else who's going to have that luxury. Like him and I can legitimately, because I'm going to be working 10 minutes away from the shooting team. I'm not going to shoot with them, but at least John and I can at least get out there every single day and go work out. And I think that's going to be our biggest moneymaker right there.
Yeah, being able to work. I'm seeing you're on the Facebook group too for the tactical games.
Yep.
I'm seeing people say like, "Hey, does anyone want to do the team event with me?" And I would never make that commitment with a random person on the internet. I
Mhm.
just part of it is the competitive side of me, and part of it is I just don't want to dedicate that. Like, what if I'm busting my ass, I show up and homeboy or homegirl just they're not on the same page. So yeah, absolutely. Jared and I were I mean, we were both on Camp Lejeune. We met up at the hit gym. We went up at the hitbox. We did yoga together in a parking garage. Like, yeah, just doing shit together is gonna help a lot.
And I think that's the biggest thing. I need to start incorporating yoga. Like, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
no spring fucking chicken anymore.
yeah,
We already, I think I talked about it with you before. What was it, 3 weeks ago? I was out on a 2 mile run with John, and
yeah,
I went a little too fast, and then I pulled my calf, and I was out of commission for over 2 weeks. You know, that may not seem like a long time, but whenever you're legitimately 6 to 8 weeks out from a competition and you pull your calf, you're like,
yeah,
what am I going to do? How long is this going to take? So I just took 2 solid weeks of doing nothing and came back and pretty much was just fine. I did a quick circuit workout, over the weekend, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna do a 5-3-1 with 100-pound sandbag, 150-pound sandbag, and a 200-pound sandbag, and just do 3 rounds and see how I do. And I was able to get it up and over, every single time, no issues whatsoever. And I was just like, okay, I feel like I'm stronger than what I was. Uh, Over the past couple days, I went on a mile and a half flat runs. I've done hikes. And that's just to see, can my leg handle the stress that it needs to handle? And it has been able to. And I haven't been going full crazy, full on speed, but I've been averaging about a 10-minute mile. And whenever I get up, there's a hill there at Spotsylvania Courthouse, and it has a nice gradual grade. and I'm just sprinting up that, and that's probably just over the half mile. It's between a half and 3/4 of a mile point, and I'm just sprinting up there. And I know once I'm up there, I'm going to be gassed, but then I have to just kind of, maintain an even pace once I get out of the tree line and just kind of finish that mile up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. And you still have time to ramp things up before you guys are getting closer to your team games. But active recovery days are important. This last, and it was actually a mental obstacle for me. And this last week, I was so used to going out there and just killing workouts that the moment that I had a day where I wasn't doing that, my body was like, what's up, dude? Like, let's go do something, like
Mm-hmm.
you're missing that endorphin rush. You're missing all of the things that it's part of your schedule. So you got to find other ways to replace it. For me, it was just busy work. I did a shit ton of house chores just to like make it feel like I was being productive in some form. Um, when I got to Texas, my brother wanted to hit the gym on like the Friday before the match, before the games, and I just went with him. And I did a little bit of skier, did a little bit of warming up. I mostly did stretching, but I tried to be productive with my time there in a way that wasn't going to be detrimental to my performance that weekend.
And I'm looking at the same thing because it's like today, after we get off of here, I'm probably going to go for, I may do today's run just slick, and I want to hit 3 miles,
Yep.
hit a 3 mile run, finish that up, come back home, go into the garage, and I want to do some type of circuit workout. That way I'm getting two decently good workouts in a day, because before I hit the team event, I want to have been able to, about 2 weeks prior to the event, which is what, next week or the week after. I want to be able to do 2 to 3 workouts in a day that range anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's smart because that's those are the conditions that you're going to be operating in. But what you said was important too, like doing slick runs every once in a while. Like you don't have to kill yourself every single time. You can go on a run that you legitimately enjoy. For me, it really depended on what I was doing afterwards. Because after going out and running with my dog, I'd either lift heavy or do a circuit workout. It's depending on where I was in the week and depending on what my body was telling me, I'd be like, okay, I'm just gonna go enjoy the run. Like no kit, just go run,
Mm-hmm.
and that's productive too.
Yep. And then tomorrow, I want to kind of keep it as an active recovery day. So I'm probably just going to go back out there to the battlefield and just go on like a 3 to 5 mile hike.
Yeah.
You know, nothing crazy.
Yeah, it's still important that you enjoy your workouts, besides the sense of accomplishment that you're still doing things. Like if you enjoy being out in nature, like you should go and do the things that you enjoy. If you enjoy hiking, like hey, throw the flag on, maybe take your take your sandbag with you,
Mm-hmm. Before we jump off, is there anything else you kind of wanted to cover down on?
Um, yeah, did you want to like go through the stages and just like some takeaways?
Yeah, yeah, we can absolutely do that.
But I guess just talk some like preparation things and just some things like everyone has their habits during a USPSA or a 3-gun match. These are mine for a tactical games match. Um, I always check in on Friday. Like I remember the first time I ran to you at the games, it was Saturday morning, and I went up to say hi to you, and I could tell that you were in no condition to have a conversation. I was just like, dude, I see it. You're overwhelmed. Do your thing. Let me know if you need anything.
Yep. And that mainly came down to, I have never been to one of these.
Yep.
I didn't know where my partner was at the time.
Yep. There's
Um,
there's no fucking cell service.
yeah, there is no
All right.
cell service.
Yep.
I drove up the day prior, but the problem is that I was so busy with work stuff and I had to zero that same day as well, because
Yeah.
it was just a mess, especially with like everything I was doing with on the team at the time. That by the time I got up there, registration had closed for the day, so I knew I had to show up earlier and register early, or check in early.
Yeah. That check-in window on Saturday is really freaking early, man.
Yeah.
It's like 5:30 to 6:30 because they cut their whatchamacallit, their safety brief goes at like 6:45
Hmm.
because they have to go through all that and then they have to do the battle briefs and then they want to start shooting by 08. So, and it's also it isn't conducive to a good experience for Saturday morning to be the first time that you see that range.
Hmm.
Not to mention that with daylight savings time, it's dark as shit, so you don't actually get to see the range.
Yeah.
So if possible, I would always check in on Friday because Friday was super leisurely, man. I showed up, I walked around a little bit, said hi to Nick. I checked in, I got my little like photo wristband thing. I went and I checked my zero, ran to James Gill. I chatted with him a little bit, saw some of my fellow Asians. I said hello to them, and then I went home like super leisurely. And then Saturday, I showed up early to get a good parking spot, prep some gear, and I was able to just stroll, like have some coffee, and I was able to stroll over and just go to the brief. So yeah, it's important for USPSA. It's important for 3-gun too. So that's like leading up to it. In between battles, the things that you do are important too. I always do a dynamic warm up before I'm about to go compete. Before every single stage, I always stretch at night between, especially Saturday and Sunday. Like Saturday night, your body maintenance is super important. A lot of guys just run out of steam on Sunday. I brought my massage gun with me. That was pretty important.
I was about to
Um,
mention that. How important was that massage gun?
it was very important. The we'll get into it, but the last stage that I did on Saturday was a very heavy like stress carry, lifting up the sandbags.
Hmm.
Like every time you got it over the parallel, you would have to lift the sandbag off the fucking ground. So my lower back was pretty gassed at the end of that. Um, but yeah, and then like showing up early too means that you need to go. I went to HEB and I filled a cooler with water and like body armors and just snacks. I just assumed I wouldn't have any time to leave the range, and I also assumed that I would have no interest in eating from whatever food truck they're going to bring out there. And I was right; it was a taco truck.
Yep. No, like one of the things that Andy is really kind of keyed me in on whenever we did that team match together. And, I always say I'm going to get better at it. And this next time I actually am. I'm starting to prep myself for what I plan on eating for the
Yeah.
games. And like I'm starting a very strict diet. And it's essentially going to be chicken and rice or steak and rice and stuff like that. That way, whenever I get to the games, in mid-April, I'm going to have Tupperware containers. So as soon as I come off a battle, it's a protein shake and it's a full meal. That way, my body, and it's essentially going to become a chore. And
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
whenever I finish, I'm going to force myself to eat and move on. Because one thing I noticed, like when I was younger, I used to really see how far I could push myself. I'd go out on field ops, and I remember one field op in particular. It was a workup for the Mew, and this was back in 2009. Um, I went 5 days without eating one bit of food, and I was able to maintain my performance and endurance that entire time. And I was realistically testing myself, just say, if I don't go without food, what's my decision making ability going to be like? What is my ability to continue fighting, fighting my Marines and fighting the enemy going to be like?
Mhm.
And it wasn't until the evening time when it was the last day and it was like, hey, we got a 10-mile hike back to the CP. And I was just like, fuck. And I knew at that point it was like I need to get at least something in my body in order to keep going. So I I had like one of those MRE banana breads, and that's what I ate. And I mean, I made it through the 10-mile hike, but I tell you what, my legs locked up at that on that last mile.
Yeah. It's fucking
And
rough, man.
and now I know I can't do that. Back in 2015, I was at infantry unit leaders course, thought I could handle not eating or drinking all day, and I got rhabdo.
Yeah, that's no joke.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it bring more than what you think you're gonna need. If you have extra, then so be it. I had some snacks left over. Um, and something else just due to the way that these games are scheduled, some of the events run like clockwork. Some of them run slower than they're supposed to, and some run faster, right? The squad matrix is never
Perfect.
accurate. So there were times when I would get done with like a ball breaking stage, and then I would have to like run the next one 30 minutes, and it just is the way it is. So having like having some morale stuff is good too. Like I had some Sour Patch Kids, and I had some like mango slices, like dried mango slices.
Oh, absolutely.
And with 30 minutes in between stages, I had enough time to go back to the van, drink some water, load my mags for the next one, and then I just put some like mango stuff in my pocket, and I was just like, as soon as the squad before me is ready to go, I'm just gonna eat some of these, do my dynamics, and then get ready. So yeah, like you gotta take care of your body.
Nope. Starburst is my jam whenever it comes to that.
Yeah, everyone has something, right? Everyone has that one bit of pokey bait that is gonna, brighten up their day. I mean, you all know how it feels to find good candy in MRE.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good fucking feeling.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
just bring that shit. Like it's gonna pay dividends.
So Jerry Climb. We didn't
Yeah.
talk about that stage, did we?
No, we didn't. So we already talked about like TAC 2 gun. Already
Yep.
talked about that. Jerry Climb was the second stage on day one. So they basically had a tall ass wall, like it was maybe 12 feet, and there were two handholds that the everybody except for the elites could use. The elites basically had to make their way over the wall slick. The way it worked was you had two jerry can handles of 50 pounds each. You carried them to the wall. You put them on the side. You scale the wall. You pick up the jerry cans again. You go to the firing line. You shoot, and you're just basically going back and forth for the entirety of it.
How tall was
Some
the wall?
It's like 12 feet.
Jesus Christ. Now
Like,
were there steps for you?
yeah. So there's two steps for intermediate men, and then I think they threw on an extra one for like the intermediate women. So my strategy was basically like left foot on the left peg, right foot on the right peg, and then after I get up on the first peg, reach for the top with my fingertips, right? And then stabilize, get up on the right peg, and then flip myself over. Um, I don't know if the video of this is going to come out, but like I got all these nice marks from like scrambling over the top.
Oh,
That's my
nice.
fault. It's not my fault for not wearing gloves or whatever. But I probably wouldn't have worn gloves anyway
I
because
wouldn't.
I don't I
I
don't I
don't
don't
shoot with
I don't
gloves.
shoot with gloves on, right? Um, so yeah, I really didn't have a rhythm on the shooting. The shooting position was it was a parallel with a single string of paracord over the top. So
Yep.
you had to shoot in between that little space. And the good old Marine Corps sitting position was the most stable position for that.
Now
Um,
that parallel was made out of PVC pipe, correct?
yep.
And so there it offers no stability, and I assume you couldn't have the rifle touching the parallel whatsoever.
No, it had to be drifting in the dead space between the paracord and the parallel and the
Okay.
PVC. Yeah. Um, yeah, but it really like this was I I didn't figure out the shooting until like the second and third string. It was just one of those things where it was just like, why couldn't I have done that to begin with? And it was because I didn't adequately train shooting in the conditions that I was going to be under during the actual games itself. I did a little bit when we did our range day, which I'm really grateful for, but um, like just recreate a stage, like just do it, like tax your forearms, tax your cardio, and then go shoot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Shuttle and shoot.
Did you see anything about this one?
I I, I
Oh
probably
God.
did.
Okay, so I said there's no long run, right? This one Bill Corcoran was the stage boss for this one. So every time you did a shuttle run, it was 50 yards, 50 feet one way, 50 feet the other way. Every time you completed one lap back and forth, you got one rifle or one pistol round. In order to get points, and you had 12 minutes, flat 12 minutes in order to get as many points as possible. Every time you went down to the line with your rifle and pistol ammo, you had to shoot all of it, and it was unsupported. And it was up to you to get like hand jam the mags as you're running back and forth. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's basically like 12 minutes of continuous running. So approaching it, I realized that if I was going up to the line too many times, I'd be burning too much time making my rifle ready, transitioning between rifle and pistol, clearing procedures. So I basically did 20 shuttle runs to fill up my pistol and my rifle mag, and I shot 20 rounds. And at that point, like I just ran back and forth for the second portion of it until Bill was saying like 60 seconds left, and then I got back to the line firing off the rest of my rounds.
Hey, I do have a question. And it's kind of off topic. Since Bill Corcoran was the stage boss there, did you mention our young captain who will remain nameless?
I did. Bill's a true professional, and he refused to dime him out. I specifically asked him. I was like, hey man, I saw your post about Mississippi. Was there a specific individual that inspired you to make that post? And he would not divulge. And Bill is a true professional, and he's a better man than I am.
I had to ask.
Yeah, he said it was multiple people, which I believe him when he says
Oh yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway, so what I found worked was so you within that run, right? You are picking up 2 rounds, rifle and pistol, and then you have to get them in your mags. So what I found worked was when I was going up to grab the ammo, I had rifle mag in one hand. I would grab with my right. I would load my rifle mag, and I'd tuck it underneath my armpit. And then I'd bring out my pistol mag. I'd load that as I was turning to the firing line to turn back to go get another round, stow the pistol mag, bring the rifle mag back out. And that was the rhythm I went with. And that was pretty efficient.
Okay.
I can't take credit for that. The guy who got second place, Dave Gia, he's a FBI trainer in the Houston area. He told me about that, and it definitely helped. But yeah, I got like 52 points. No, was it 52 points? 52 points. So I got a total. I did have some misses, but I shot a total of like maybe 60 rounds total. So it was a lot of running back and forth.
All right, deal and move.
Yeah. So 100-pound rogue sandbag. You got to pick it up. You can shoulder it if you want, but the only thing was like you had to have your hips facing the parallel, and you had to step over it. You couldn't do a side step. And you had to do 8 in the first sequence, 6, 4, and then 2. What you could do was once you stress carried it across, you could do a touch and go. Like basically you could set the sandbag down on the ground and quickly bring it back up. But you're basically doing like a bunch of in sequence deadlifts.
With so that was intermediate weight. Was tactical weight any different?
I think it was 125 for their
sandbag. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So like it's something I could have done. It's just I went pretty hard on the touch and goes in the beginning. And I found that like my lower back was starting to get pretty strained. And then you have to carry the sandbag all the way to the front. You're shooting off a tank trap, which actually provides a lot of stability. I think that tank trap is one of the better rifle positions to shoot off of. But also they brought in a strong hand and weak hand shooting, which I don't think I've done in the tactical games before. So that's like the right. It was started right hand and then left hand and then freestyle. And I don't think there's too much else to really say about deadlift and move.
Now, we talked about TAC-2 gun. Now,
if I could say something quick about the way TAC-2 gun works, it's not hit factor. It's It's the time you take to complete the stage. But you
Time
need
plus penalties.
yes, you need at least an Alpha Charlie in order to neutralize a target. So it's not two anywhere on paper.
Okay.
So I actually got two Charlie on one target. It was like a canted target, and so I had a miss on the rifle stage. So yeah, but here's the thing: like if you hit three Charlies, that counts. They use minor scoring, and you have to get 8 points.
Mm.
So yeah,
So be accurate, but be fast.
yeah. If you got a tricky target, I would just send three at it. It
Okay.
seems to be the most. I should have done that. That would have saved me a lot. But yes, accuracy, absolutely. And hide over bore was killing a lot of guys, and then just it being an action stage was killing a lot of guys too.
Mm-hmm. Now, two-part endurance.
Yeah. So this was the one where you shoot and then you go run like a third of a mile lap, and then you do like it was shoot, run, shoot, run, shoot, run, shoot. And then you had to take all your stuff to a different, like not a different stage, but basically 15 feet away. And then you had one of those jerry can sandbags. You had to carry it to the wall, which is now set on its side, so it's not as tall as it was on day one. But you had to do a hand release burpee, get the bag over the wall, jump over the wall. Every length that you walked was 1 point, and every burpee, lift, jump was also 1 point. And I did 50, but some guys were doing like 67, 70.
Jesus.
That's why I'm saying like that if you calculate that out, that puts me at like 70% of the points.
Mhm.
So that just killed me. And here's the thing, like I actually finished the run pretty early, so I gave myself extra time, but I was just so exhausted going over that wall that I could have gotten more reps.
Now the Texas floater.
Yeah. So that was just a yoke. Throw a sandbag over the yoke and then jump over the yoke. The only stipulation is that some part of your foot has to touch the bar on the way over. So I did 29 reps, but some dudes were doing like 35 and above. It's just your efficient, like it's only 90 seconds. Like, you have
Okay.
90 seconds to do as many as possible. So you're going balls to the wall for those 90 seconds.
Oh,
I
damn.
would say about 30 seconds in, like I was going at a pretty like sporty pace. But then I was like, I definitely slowed down near the end. And it was also my last event, like out of the entire weekend.
Mhm.
And that's just another thing. Like there's an ideal order in which to shoot the stages. It's not going to happen, right? You can't control that. You are going to shoot when they have you shoot. But yeah, that the good thing about it was that you didn't need your rifle and you didn't need your pistol belt. It was just a plate carrier.
Okay.
So that was easier in some ways, but
Now you
yeah,
said
man.
some part of your foot had to touch the bar. Is
Yeah.
it the bottom of your foot or any part of your foot?
If you asked that question, so Bill Corcoran was the stage boss. He would have answered, "Some part of your foot has to touch the bar." Like
And I
that.
I say that because at the team event last year, the way they ran it is it was part two of a stage, and it was carrying 100-pound sandbag down to the bar, and you're going, I want to say 25 yards. You're dropping the sandbag, jumping over the bar, but the bottom of your foot has to touch. If
It was
it
just
doesn't, you have to jump back over.
it was just some part of your foot.
Okay.
So you could hook your legs over, and then like just the top part of your foot could be the part that touched the bar.
That's much easier.
It is much easier. Yeah, especially for us vertically challenged folks,
Yes.
gravitationally challenged.
Mm-hmm. Midgets. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, you can't say that.
You just did.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was one more stage. The down, back down. It was farmer's carries down, back down, shoot. Sandbag stress carry down, back down, shoot, and then carry both. And that was fast. You just needed to be like really efficient. My rifle shooting was on. I only dropped one shot out of 30. So if only I'd shot like that the entire weekend. But yeah, it was a really good event. I said it was bittersweet. Like I can't it doesn't take anything away from the weekend in which I met a lot of great people, as I always do. And the intermediate, like there's so many people in intermediate most of the time, like there was 53 this time, that it's really hard to like get a sense of I guess community or cohesion. But man, I was like the second person to run that TAC 2 gun stage. And after that, people were like, dude, like you're good. You're too good for intermediate. And I was just like, chill out. Like I'm coming back from a really bad injury. Um, but you know, I guess that happens to me in like USPSA matches, but it is the first time it's happened to me in tactical games. Um, and having that positive reinforcement definitely like was good for my mental state throughout the weekend.
Mhm.
It's a good thing when you know you're the guy, a guy, like people are looking at you and watching you and emulating things you're doing. That has a tremendous residual effect. And I would like to
Yes.
call two things there, and ones that um just if you see someone crushing it, sending positive vibes their way is really important, right?
Yes.
Like vocalizing that stuff. And I don't think we necessarily do it. And it has to be meaningful. Like they have to earn it, and you have to be authentic about it. Otherwise, it's just fake, and
Hmm.
it's not worth anything. But man, like I think it applies to more things than just the tactical games and competition, right? Are you familiar with something called the Pygmalion effect?
No.
So they did a study where like they try to turn someone into like a symphony composer in like a week. And for most of us, a symphony composer just waves a wand around and everyone just plays the music. But what they're doing is actually technical and has meaning. And a lot of it has to do with confidence, right? So they spent a week basically like gassing this guy up and saying like you got what it takes, and like teaching him the mechanics of it. And he actually ended up doing pretty well. And really what it's saying is like if you have a good emotional support system and people in your corner, um, that pays huge dividends. It just helps, right?
Mhm.
So it's just something I think we should keep in mind when we're like building our competitive communities, or just like our tribes, the people that we hang out with. Like that's a good emphasis to have.
But
um
it goes back to like what I've always tried to do, and one of the things that I think the Marine Corps shooting team is really good at is positive reinforcement. If you don't have that positive reinforcement, if you don't have the trust and the positive vibes from your own teammates, you're never going to get you're never going to feel like you are accomplishing something, and it literally will hold you back. You will not have the confidence to get to that next step.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it becomes even more important in sports that are so intensely personal, like shooting,
Hmm.
where like all my fuck ups this last weekend were all on me. Like there's things I could nitpick about, and like what if, but ultimately like yeah, that drive home on Sunday, man, because at the end of day one, I was in third place. I was like, if I keep going, I'm gonna make the podium. And I refreshed the scores on Sunday night, and it's not there. Um, so, and this was after I'd taken a shot of vodka and chased it with a pickle, as is a tradition, evidently, if you stick around long enough after the games. So that feeling of elation turning to like just straight up shittiness was pretty bad. And yeah, I was getting on myself. But at the end of the day, you got to own it, right? Like this, if you compete in any of these sports, you are going to lose so much more than you're going to win.
Hmm.
And there's a good way. There's a good way to do it. It sounds like a loser thing to say, but there's a good way to accept your defeat. And part of
Hmm.
that is just taking ownership of the things that you did to earn your place. Like, yeah, sure. Like there, maybe if the points had shaken out some other way, or if the schedule had been reconfigured, whatever, the weather had been different, yeah, maybe I would have gotten second or third. But there were things that I fucked up that made me earn fourth place.
Hmm.
That's just it. Um, on the bright side, you and I talked about this morning. This qualifies me for EIC points.
Yes.
Um, honestly, dude, like, and I think I don't know, I'm curious to hear what you think about this. I remember back when I was ready to go pistol distinguished, and I mentioned that like there's several matches I could have submitted to get the last batch of points, and you were like, dude, just submit. But there's a part of me that like these are like trophies, right? And every time I look at one, I wanted to remind me of where I was in that part of my life and like what happened and what transpired to make that particular event meaningful. So I kind of shy away from like, I mean, nothing against taking local matches for points, and it's a great change to the EIC program that is getting Marines into shooting. But for me personally, the fact that this Tactical Games has produced a Marine Corps rifle medal is really meaningful to me because it was the recovery, it was the support, like
It's
let
the
you,
story behind it, the
yeah,
journey. We
like
call
you,
we say the road to distinguish. It's not how fast you get to distinguish; it's the journey that takes you there along the way,
yeah,
and everything you learned in that process.
yeah, and I learned a lot. Like it's going to sound super corny, but yeah, it's been such a significant setback. But if you had told me in like the weeks after I found out that Achilles was completely fucked, and I was limping around, and I was in a boot, and like my fucking there's like internal bleeding and all this other stuff going on, that I was going to make a recovery strong enough to nearly make the podium at a tactical games in Texas where there's a lot of heat, I don't think I would have believed you. But yeah, here we are.
No, that's awesome, and I say take the points.
Yeah,
There's a story behind it.
yeah, there is. I definitely plan on doing it. But yeah, that's really it. That's really it. Again, would love to have a medal to go along with it, but
Or a
that'll come.
trophy.
Yeah, well, they're doing medals now.
Oh, well, yeah,
Yeah, that thing on your shelf, that's a thing of the past.
yeah,
There's been cost cutting. God damn it, they don't do that no more. But yeah, apparently those were expensive as fuck. And Jared
yeah,
was like, it just didn't make any sense. And they're
hmm
sometimes they were coming too late, and you want
yep.
to have something to give the athlete. But yes, I keep saying it because you could tell, man. There's disappointment. I want something to like, the competitive
The
side of
fruits of
us,
your labor.
exactly. But like, there is something. Like I did come away with something from it, um, and it was a fantastic weekend. It's just one of those things, man. It's just life. But the podium will come someday. I'm sure of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm just for me, I'm hoping it's in a few weeks, which I think it will. I
Yeah,
think me and Bot are going to be pretty competitive.
yeah. As soon as the ROC is asked, like they're just gonna give you guys the podium.
Nah, no, 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 no.
No, but
Uh,
you guys have been working at it. I know you guys have like a great work ethic. You're gonna make a good team. I'm gonna be rooting for you guys when you're down there. Um, I met a lot of folks who asked me when my next games is gonna be. I know as soon as I told you I missed the podium, you're like, guess you're coming in fucking September. But I don't know, man. That's another thing, right? If you Open Nationals is in September, and it's just like
oh,
if you want to compete at a high level, and like it has to be all in. You
mm-hmm.
know, I can't I can't be like a dry fired open shooting nerd and then convert into a tactical athlete. Supposedly there's probably a world in which that's possible, but um, it's all or one. It's either one or the other is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I
yeah,
get that. For me, now that I'm retired, I don't have to do PFTs or maintain the physical standards of the Marine Corps anymore. It's more all on my own terms. So it's like this is my way of saying keep your ass in shape. Don't become one of those fat, happy retired guys. I'm gonna be happy, but I'm not gonna be fat. And I want to still be able to do things. I don't want to just saturate away and just turn into shit. Like this
yeah,
is my way of holding myself accountable for my own personal reasons.
yeah. There's I met a couple of retired Marines out there still out there getting it. And like that entire group of guys and gals who still like the Masters plus 50 plus. That's motivating as fuck, man. Like they are out there slaying weights and like slinging lead down range. And yeah, it's something. Absolutely, it's absolutely something to look forward to. Unfortunately, I do have to start prepping for the PFT. So for those of us that are still under indentured servitude, yeah, but I'm gonna keep working the strength training and everything else, and yeah, whenever I figure out my next games, yeah, I'll be ready to take it by storm.
But yeah, I think that kind of covers everything, unless you got anything to add.
I feel like I rambled a lot. Thanks for listening, guys. Obviously, you can tell I'm pretty emotional, but yeah, I really went for it. Um, and yeah, I can't recommend it enough. For those of you that are skeptics about the tactical games, like there are just things that it offers you that that are not replicated in other shooting sports. Part of it's the community, part of it's that particular set of your marksmanship proficiency. But yeah, it's something else. And there's a reason that Matt and I enjoy it so much and keep going back.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the challenge, because there's a lot of fucking challenge to it.
Yeah.
But the other aspect is legitimately the community. I love my 3-gun crew and the 3-gun crowd, and they are all great people. But the tactical games community, it's honestly on a different level.
It is.
Like people are there for you.
Yeah, they are. If you're listening to this and I ran to you in Texas, just know that you fucking made my weekend, and yeah, it was an awesome time. I hope to see some of those guys in future games.
But other than that, I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions about the tactical games, if you're interested in getting involved, participating, assisting, what have you, please reach out to Frank and I, and we'll give you the scoop on it. Other than that, have a good one, and we'll talk to you later.